Every morning the alarm rang at 6 o'clock, and every morning Daniel pressed snooze 3 times before finally opening his eyes. The room was small, the same gray walls he had stared at for years. Nothing in that room suggested success, greatness, or even change. Just a narrow bed, a wooden desk, and a window that looked out onto the same street where the same people passed by every day. Daniel often wondered how some people managed to build extraordinary lives while others seemed stuck in the same place forever. He had watched countless videos about success, motivation, and discipline, but after the videos ended, nothing in his own life changed. Days passed, weeks passed, and the dream of becoming someone meaningful felt further away each time. One evening, after another long day at a job he didn't enjoy, Daniel sat on the bench near his apartment building. The sky was slowly turning orange as the sun set. And for the first time in a long while, he wasn't scrolling through his phone. He simply sat there in silence. An old man sat down next to him. "Long day?" the man asked with a small smile. Daniel nodded. "Feels like every day is the same." The old man looked down the empty street and said something Daniel would never forget. "Most people think their life changes in one big moment, but it almost never does. Life changes in small decisions that nobody sees." Daniel didn't say anything, but the words stayed with him. That night he went home and sat at his desk. He opened a notebook that had been empty for months. On the first page he wrote one sentence: "Tomorrow, I will start small." The next morning the alarm rang again at 6 o'clock. This time Daniel didn't press snooze. He got out of bed, even though he didn't feel motivated, even though he felt tired, even though nothing magical had happened overnight. He simply remembered the old man's words, small decisions. Daniel decided he would run for 10 minutes before work. Not an hour, not 5 miles, just 10 minutes. The run felt terrible. His legs were heavy, his breathing was uneven, and halfway through he wanted to quit. But he did in single quotes t. 10 minutes later he walked back to his apartment. Exhausted but strangely proud. It wasn't much, but it was something. The next day he ran again. 10 minutes. Then 10 minutes the day after that. Weeks passed. Running became easier. His energy improved. But more importantly, Daniel began to notice something strange. Keeping one small promise to himself made it easier to keep others. He started reading 10 pages of a book each night. Then he reduced the time he spent scrolling on his phone. Then he began learning new skills online after work. None of it was dramatic. None of it looked impressive from the outside. But inside, something was changing. Daniel began to trust himself. Months passed, and his routine slowly grew stronger. What began as 10 minutes of running turned into 30. The 10 pages of reading became an hour of learning. The late nights watching random videos became focused time building new skills. One evening he looked back at the first page of his notebook. "Tomorrow, I will start small." The words made him smile, because he realized something powerful. The small start had changed everything, but the road was not always easy. One winter morning Daniel woke up to freezing rain outside his window. The sky was dark, and the warmth of the bed made it almost impossible to stand up. A voice in his mind whispered, "Skip today, just once." Because every difficult choice made him someone new. Years passed. The tiny room with the gray walls slowly transformed. The desk that once held nothing but dust now held books, notes, and plans. The same window that once showed the same boring street now felt like a reminder of how far he had come. Daniel eventually left the job he once hated. He started working on projects he cared about. At first they failed, then they improved, then they started to grow. People began asking him a question he never expected to hear. "How did you do it?" Some assumed he had a secret strategy. Others believed he had extraordinary talent. But Daniel always gave the same answer. It started with 10 minutes. Most people laughed when they heard that. 10 minutes sounded too simple, too small, too insignificant to change a life. But Daniel knew the truth. Great lives are rarely built in giant leaps. They are built in small steps repeated every single day. One evening, years later, Daniel walked past the same bench where he had once sat feeling lost. The bench was empty. The old man was nowhere to be seen, but Daniel still remembered his words as clearly as if he had heard them yesterday. Life changes in small decisions that nobody sees. Daniel sat down on the bench and watched the sunset again. The same orange sky, the same quiet street. But everything felt different. Because he understood something now that he didn't understand before. You don't need perfect conditions to begin. You don't need endless motivation. You don't need to have everything figured out. All you need is one decision, one small step. One promise to yourself that you refuse to break. Maybe today your goal feels impossible. Maybe the distance between where you are and where you want to be feels overwhelming. But every long journey begins the same way, not with a giant leap. But with a single step. 10 minutes of effort. One page read. One skill practiced. One excuse ignored. Those small actions may seem invisible today, but repeated every day, they become unstoppable. One day you will look back and realize that the moment your life began to change was not some dramatic turning point. It was the quiet morning when you decided to start small and refused to stop.